I didn't expect my daughter's 7th birthday to be the day everything broke. Not the day the truth finally snapped open, loud and ugly, right in front of everyone. But maybe I should have known. The signs had been there for years, quiet little warnings pretending not to be warnings at all. It started with the voice I heard behind me, sharp enough to feel like cold metal pressed against my spine. "She's not family," someone whispered. "Not really." They said it softly, like gossip. But I knew that voice. I knew it better than my own heartbeat. It was my sister. And she was talking about me. Before I tell you how it all unraveled, let me give you one sentence that will make you want to hear the rest. My daughter was blowing out her candles when they decided to pretend I didn't exist. If stories of quiet betrayal, family hypocrisy, and calm revenge resonate with you, stay right here. What happened next is the reason I stopped apologizing for protecting my peace. And the ending, let's just say, they never expected me to walk away with all the power. The story really began one night when I was sitting at my kitchen table, half asleep, half alive, scrolling through Amazon for party supplies. Pink streamers. Dinosaur plates because she liked them more than princess ones. A cake topper with her name spelled in gold. My daughter, Lily, was upstairs sleeping, her arm wrapped around her stuffed fox. I watched her earlier through the crack of her bedroom door, her soft breathing, her eyelashes curled against her cheeks, and thought, she deserves a birthday full of people who actually love her. That was the problem. I kept trying to make a family out of people who only showed up when they needed something from me. My parents. My sister. My brother-in-law. Every one of them attached to me with invisible strings made of money, obligation, and guilt. When I started doing well financially, they treated it like a family asset. Not mine. Ours. I paid their bills. Their rent. Their emergencies. Their groceries. Their quick loans that were never loans. And for years, I convinced myself I didn't mind. Because helping them made me feel useful. Safe. Included. The truth I didn't want to face was this: they didn't love me more because I helped them. They just needed me more. There's a difference. But Lily's birthday, that was supposed to be the one day everything felt normal. One day we could be a family without tension underneath every breath. I wanted the pictures. The memories. The kind of childhood moment she could look back on someday without flinching. So I invited them. All of them. Even though they hadn't visited in months. Even though they ignored Lily's art shows and school plays. Even though my sister once forgot Lily's name while introducing her to a friend. I still invited them. Because I was still hoping. The morning of the party, I woke up at 5:12 a.m. without an alarm. Excitement mixed with anxiety, swirling like a storm behind my ribs. I baked cupcakes. I tied balloons. I set up the backyard with folding tables and rented chairs. Lily helped hang little paper stars across the fence. It felt beautiful. It felt right. She wore a yellow dress with tiny white flowers and ran in circles around the yard until she was dizzy. Around noon, guests started arriving. Kids from her class. Moms I barely knew were waving from the driveway. My neighbor from across the street. But my family. My family wasn't there yet. They were all coming. That's what they'd promised. At 1:30 p.m., there was still no sign. At 2:10 p.m., my anxiety started to feel familiar. The old kind. The kind made from disappointment. At 3:02 p.m., I checked my phone for the 10th time. Nothing. At 3:17 p.m., Lily tugged my sleeve. "Mommy, do you think Nana and Grandpa are almost here?" My smile didn't reach my eyes. "Maybe, baby. They might be running late." But in my chest I already knew. Late wasn't the word. Absent was. And then, right as Lily blew out her candles, my sister's voice sliced through the crowd. Cold. Flat. almost bored. She's not family. I whipped around so fast that my vision blurred. My sister, Jenna, stood near the fence with her husband, both dressed like they were attending a cocktail party instead of a 7-year-old's birthday. She didn't know I'd hurt her. But one of the other moms looked uncomfortable, the kind of uncomfortable that comes from witnessing something private that should have stayed private. My chest tightened. Not family. I wasn't sure who she meant at first. Me? Lily? Both? My sister laughed quietly, sipping her lemonade. You know how she is. Always emotional. Always dramatic. It's why we don't include her in, well, you know. My ears rang. My breath turned shallow. They weren't late. They had been here the whole time. Avoiding me. Talking about me. Acting like the mother of the birthday girl wasn't worth acknowledging. And it was the phrase she used next that froze me completely, we're only here because she's covering Dad's medical bills again. Otherwise, we wouldn't bother. Lily was behind me. Thank God she didn't hear. But I heard. I heard every word. The world didn't spin. It imploded quietly. I'd been paying for everything. For them to show up. For them to pretend. That was the moment, right there, with icing drying on paper plates and kids screaming in the background, when something in me cracked in half. I wanted to say something. To shout. To demand they leave. But Lily was laughing at something with her friends, blissfully unaware. So I swallowed it. I swallowed every sharp word rising in my throat. Because the day wasn't about me. It was about her. But swallowing something doesn't make it disappear. It just waits. And it waited until the last guest left, the last cupcake wrapper thrown away, the last balloon deflated. They approached me finally, my parents, my sister, the whole cluster of them. No greetings. No warmth. Just a single sentence that finished breaking what was already fragile. You're not really part of the family anymore, Olivia. Not the way you used to be. I stood there in the backyard I had decorated myself, in the house I paid for alone, covered in the evidence of a party I created from scratch. And they, the people I supported financially, emotionally, constantly, they looked at me like I was an outsider. A stranger. An ATM. A placeholder. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just felt everything inside me settle into a quiet, terrifying clarity. If I wasn't family to them, then neither was my money. And they had no idea, I was seconds away from proving it. After they left that night, the backyard felt too quiet. Streamers fluttered weakly in the breeze. The last balloon hung from a fence post, slowly sinking toward the grass. Lily was asleep upstairs, exhausted from joy she didn't know almost collapsed beneath her feet. I stood there alone in the half-light, staring at the place where my sister had stood earlier, the exact spot where she'd said I wasn't family. It echoed in my mind like a cracked bell. You're not really part of the family anymore. It wasn't the words themselves. It was the ease. The confidence. The absolute comfort with which she dismissed me, like cutting me out was as simple as deleting a contact. Part of me wanted to pretend I misheard. Maybe it came from stress or wine or misunderstanding. But I didn't mishear anything. And I didn't misunderstand her tone. The truth lived in the spaces between the sentences. The truth was that my value had always been measured in dollars, not affection. I walked inside the house, still sticky with birthday sugar and leftover laughter. I washed dishes quietly, the warm water running over my shaking hands. And the whole time, my mind replayed every moment that got me here. The years of covering rent. The medical bills. The surprise car repairs. The emergencies that always landed in my lap. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as funding. And when people see you as funding, they don't think twice about withdrawing more than they ever deposit. It was around midnight when the first message buzzed through my phone. Mom, you left before we could talk. Dad wants to review next month's payments with you. Payments. Monthly. Scheduled. They treated my direct support like a subscription. No apology. No explanation. No mention of the cruel words whispered at Lily's party. Just, payments. I stared at the message, feeling something in my chest go very still. Then, another buzz. Jenna, it wasn't personal. You know how emotional you get. Let's just keep things normal. Normal. Her normal was me paying while she judged. The messages didn't make me angry. They made everything crystal clear. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was the truth revealing itself. I set the phone down and walked upstairs. The hallway nightlight glowed a soft blue. Lily's door was cracked open, just how she liked it. I stepped inside, careful not to wake her. She was dreaming, her small hands curled under her cheek, her hair spread across the pillow like a brown halo. I knelt beside her bed and stared at her gentle breathing, the rise and fall of innocence unbroken by betrayal. She deserved a mother who wasn't drowning under emotional debt. She deserved a childhood that didn't depend on my ability to tolerate mistreatment. She deserved family, real family, not people who used us like a safety net they never cared to hold in return. I touched her hand lightly. I'll protect you, I whispered. Even if it meant cutting away the people who shared our last name. The next morning, the sun looked different. Not warmer or brighter, just clearer. Like the world was finally showing itself without filters. Lily woke up bouncing, still talking about her party, completely unaware of the storm I was holding back. As she ate her cereal, she looked at me with those wide brown eyes. Mommy, did Nana and Grandpa have fun yesterday? My throat tightened. I didn't know how to answer that. They came for you, sweetheart, I said gently. And that's all that matters. But even that felt like a lie. They hadn't come for her. They didn't bring her a gift. They didn't hug her. They didn't even look excited to be there. They came because they thought I'd confront them if they didn't. They came because it was easier to attend than to deal with the consequences of not attending. They came because I saved them from embarrassment, not because they cared about my daughter. After I dropped Lily at school, I sat in the car for a long moment, engine running, staring at my own reflection in the windshield. A woman with tired eyes. A woman with a long history of giving too much. A woman who deserved more than scraps labeled as love. On the ride home, another message came. Dad, we need grocery money today. Don't forget. Not a request. Not a question. A command. Like I was a vending machine they owned. I locked the phone and tossed it onto the passenger seat. Something in me, something quiet but powerful, shifted. That shift became action. I spent the next hour gathering every piece of financial responsibility I had tied to them. Bank transfers. Recurring payments. Subscriptions. Medical autopay. Rent assistance. I made a list. It wasn't small. By noon, I had cancelled the first payment. Then the second. Then the third. Each cancellation felt like cutting a thread. A thread wrapped around my neck for too many years. Then I reached the biggest one, the joint account I had opened for them to use for emergencies, my money, their access. My finger hovered. My heart pounded. Then I closed it. Just like that. In 1 second, without drama. If they didn't see me as family, then I no longer had an obligation to hold their lives together. An hour later, my phone buzzed violently. Dad calling. Then Mom. Then Dad again. Then a text, Mom, why is the account empty? Where is the money? Then another, Dad, is this a mistake? Then another, Jenna, what did you do? They're freaking out. I didn't reply. Instead, I stepped outside, letting the cold air hit my face. For the first time in my adult life, absolutely nothing tied me to them financially. I should have felt guilty. I didn't. I felt free. At 3:15 p.m., I picked up Lily from school. She skipped to the car, her backpack bouncing. "Did you have a good day?" I asked. "The best," she said. "We played freeze tag." Her joy was a reminder of what I owed myself, peace. When we got home, I made dinner while she colored at the table. Just us. No tension hanging in the air. No phone buzzing with demands. I served her pasta, and she looked up at me with sauce on her chin. "Mommy, can we have another party someday?" "Yes," I smiled. "But only with people who love us." She nodded like she understood more than she should. Kids always do. After bedtime, I curled up on the couch, legs tucked under me, warm blanket wrapped around my shoulders. My phone lit up again. "Dad, we need that money. Call me. Now." "Mom, we counted on that. Answer us." "Jenna, stop acting like a victim. This is embarrassing." I turned the phone face down. Not in avoidance, in control. Hours later, when the house was silent and the world felt softer, I realized something. They weren't angry because I withdrew money. They were angry because I withdrew myself. Because for the first time, they couldn't pull the strings. And deep down, I knew this was only the start. They had no idea the kind of storm my silence was about to create. I did not sleep at all after the birthday disaster. My mind kept replaying the same moment, the moment my daughter's little voice cracked as she stood near the gate, asking the question she had asked all afternoon. "Do you think they are coming now?" Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her holding that small handmade card, the one she decorated with glitter stars and a messy drawing of herself hugging my parents. She showed it to me 3 weeks before her birthday and said she hoped Nana would hang it on the fridge. I remembered how excited she was while choosing the purple paper. Purple was her favorite color because she said it made her feel like a princess. And the princess had waited in a front yard filled with balloons, cupcakes, and a second-hand bouncy castle, only for her grandparents to decide she did not matter enough. The night after the party, the house felt different. Quiet. Soft. But not the peaceful kind of quiet. More like the kind that settles over a place when something sacred has been broken. I sat at the kitchen table scrolling through the same set of photos on my phone. My daughter is laughing with her friends. Her face was bright with joy even while she waited for 2 people who never intended to show up. I kept pausing at one picture where she stood in the backyard, cupcake frosting on her cheek, eyes drifting toward the driveway again. Her small hand lingered near her dress, like she was holding on to hope so tightly it hurt. That picture felt like a knife in my chest. When morning finally came, I moved slowly, almost mechanically, making breakfast, packing her school bag, brushing her hair while she looked at herself in the mirror with sleepy eyes. She did not ask about them. Not once. Children know how to bury things because they see how adults do it. She hugged me before leaving and whispered, "Today was fun, Mommy." I kissed her cheek. But the words were heavy inside me. Fun should not have been something she said to comfort me. When she left, I walked back into the kitchen, leaned against the counter, and stared at the empty table. My phone buzzed. I thought for a moment it might be my parents with some flimsy excuse, some last-minute explanation they had crafted to sound reasonable. But it was the landlord telling me their rent had not arrived. That was the moment something inside me changed, like a lock clicking shut. I had been paying their rent every month for so long that even the landlord believed it was my responsibility. When he said the rent was unlike me to miss, something twisted inside my chest. Unlike me. He was right. It was unlike me, because I had been raising adults without calling it that. I told him it was not my responsibility anymore. The words felt strange, like I was hearing someone else speak from inside my body. After I hung up, I stared out the window and thought about the years I had spent saving them. When their electricity was cut, I paid for it. When they had a flat tire, I covered it. When my father said he needed a new phone for work, I bought it. When my mother wanted money for her business idea that lasted half a season, I sent it. They never said thank you. Not because they forgot, but because they expected it. That afternoon, my brother called and told me something that made the air tilt sideways. He had been sending them money too. Not as much as me, but still a few hundred here and there. Suddenly everything made sense. They had been playing both of us. Two adult children working separate jobs, separate lives, carrying the same guilt like a shared burden. A burden they had handed to us, expecting us to hold it with both hands while they lived without consequence. My brother sounded tired, defeated. He said something I will never forget. We both kept paying rent on the same guilt. His voice cracked when he said it. Those words stayed with me long after the call ended. Later that evening, I sat on the couch and looked around my living room. The toys scattered on the rug, the drawings taped on the fridge, the mismatched furniture. Everything in that room was something I had built with my own hands. But all my efforts toward my parents had felt like pouring water into a bottomless bucket. A bucket that never filled, never overflowed, never reflected anything back except their needs. I opened my phone again and scrolled through the birthday pictures, but this time I stopped at one where my daughter was blowing out the candles. Her eyes were squeezed shut, her hands pressed together, making a wish. My throat tightened. I wondered what she wished for. Children ask for simple things. Love. Attention. Someone showing up. I knew what I wished for at that moment. A life where she never had to wonder why the people who were supposed to love her the most treated her like an afterthought. Then the text came. My mother asked me to order dinner for them. Chinese or something. Nothing fancy. They did not have food in the house. I stared at the message for a long minute. 40 minutes after telling me my child meant nothing to them, they remembered they needed something from me. Not me. My wallet. I turned the phone face down and walked to my daughter's room. She was asleep curled up around her stuffed bunny. Her hair fell across her cheek in soft waves. The innocence of her breathing felt like a reminder. A reminder that she deserved better. And I deserved better too. When I returned to the kitchen, the phone still lay silent on the counter. For the first time in 8 months, I did not panic about whether they could manage without me. Something in me had broken free. I opened my banking app and began deleting every recurring payment linked to their lives. Rent. Utilities. Groceries. Car insurance. Every tap felt like removing one brick from a wall that had been built around me. A wall they used to keep me trapped in responsibility. By the time I reached the final payment, the automatic 700 cent every Monday morning. My hands stopped shaking. After I deleted it, the house felt different. Still quiet, but not in a painful way. More like the quiet that comes when you finally step out of a storm and realize you are still breathing. The next morning, I dropped my daughter off at school, kissed her forehead, and watched her walk into the building with her backpack bouncing behind her. When I drove away, I felt something steady settling inside me. A kind of resolve I had not felt in years. When I got home, I made a cup of coffee and sat at the table. The sunlight poured across the counter and the room felt warmer, almost hopeful. Then my phone buzzed. Another unknown number. It was their landlord again. He said they had been told to vacate in 30 days and he felt sorry. I ignored the sympathy. Sympathy was wasted on people who knew exactly what they were doing. Later that afternoon, my brother sent me the link to the Facebook live stream. The one where my parents tried to paint themselves as the victims. Where my mother cried into a tissue and my father sat beside her saying I needed help. My hands went cold when he lifted the photo of my daughter on camera and said the words again. This child does not exist to us. I sat there frozen, watching them lie, watching them rewrite reality to protect their pride. Watching them pretend they had been the loving ones all along. My stomach twisted. Not because of the lie, but because they were so comfortable telling it in front of the world. The comments were mixed. Some people offered sympathy. Others believed them. Some questioned how a parent could say that about a child. And some called me ungrateful without knowing anything. I turned off the phone and slid it across the counter. I felt none of the rage I expected. Only a quiet clarity. My silence had become my armor. The next day, things shifted in a way I never expected. My cousin Lauren called and told me they had shown up at the family reunion. They walked in like nothing had happened, trying to gather sympathy from relatives. She warned me I might want to check Facebook later. When I finally did, there was a new video already spreading. Someone had recorded the scene. My parents standing in a circle, my mother trying to explain, my father nodding along. They said I had misunderstood them, twisted everything, and overreacted. Then Lauren stepped in. She pressed play on her phone and let my father's voice fill the yard. "Your child means nothing to us." The sound cut the air like a blade. Silence fell around them. Uncle James told them they did not belong there. And no one defended them. Not one person. They walked away alone. I watched the video 3 times. Not because I enjoyed it, but because it felt like a turning point. The truth had revealed itself without me lifting a finger. My hands trembled, not from revenge, but from release. The weight I had been carrying for years was no longer only mine. My brother called that night. "You saw it." I did. "They finally exposed themselves," he said. And for the first time, I believed him. He told me he loved me. He told me he was proud of me. And after we hung up, I stood in the doorway of my daughter's room for a long time. She lay there sleeping, hugging her stuffed bunny, the soft glow of her nightlight painting warm shapes on the wall. I realized then that I had spent so many years trying to hold on to a family who had let go of me a long time ago. But my daughter was my family. My brother was my family. The people who stayed, who showed up, who loved without conditions, they were my family. The next week passed quietly. My parents disappeared from social media. Their church friends stopped posting about them. Their landlord moved quickly. But none of it felt like victory. It felt like a door finally closing after a lifetime of drafts blowing through the cracks. One evening, as my daughter colored at the kitchen table, filling a page with stars and hearts and purple shapes, she looked up at me and asked a question that almost made me crumble. "Mommy, can Nana and Grandpa come next year if they want to?" I held her face gently. "No, baby, they will not be coming anymore." She paused, then nodded. "That is okay," she said. "We can invite Uncle Ryan instead." At that moment, I realized something simple and powerful. We were no longer waiting at gates for love that would never arrive. We were choosing who deserved to be inside. And deep down, I knew the story was not finished yet. Because silence may be peaceful, but it also leaves room for something else. Something I could sense coming, like footsteps approaching a door I had finally locked. Something told me they were not done. And the next time they knocked, everything would change again. The day everything came full circle started quietly, almost uneventfully. A soft gray morning, the kind where the sky hangs low as if it knows something you don't. I was standing at the kitchen counter packing my daughter's lunch. Spreading peanut butter on toast while she hummed behind me, drawing little purple stars on napkins because she said, "Mommy, lunches need decorations." For a moment, life felt normal again. Simple. Soft. Ours. The doorbell rang. My daughter looked up. "Are we expecting someone?" "No," I said, wiping my hands on a towel. "Stay here, sweetheart." My chest tightened as I walked toward the door. I could not explain the feeling, but something in me braced itself, like the air shifted just a little too fast. When I opened the door, 2 envelopes lay on the mat. No knock, no footsteps, no person walking away. Just 2 cream envelopes with my name written neatly across the front. My stomach tightened. The first envelope was thin. The second was thicker, heavier, almost swollen with paper. Both had my parents' address in the corner. I picked them up and closed the door quietly, the sound echoing through the hallway. My daughter peeked around the corner, curiosity blinking in her eyes. Mommy, who was it? No one is important, baby. I kissed her forehead. Finish drawing your stars. She nodded and skipped back to the table. I set the envelopes on the counter and stared at them for a long moment. My fingers hovered over the thinner one first. It felt like a letter. Probably an apology. Probably a plea. Probably words they should have said years ago but only found now that consequences finally arrived. I opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten letter in my mother's looping script. For a second, I almost felt something like nostalgia. But then I started reading. Emily, we know things have gotten out of hand and we want to explain. Your father and I never meant to hurt you. We never meant to leave you out of anything. You misunderstand so much of what happened. We believe you have been influenced by others who want to turn you against your own family. This is why we need to talk in person. This anger has gone too far. My hands tightened around the paper. Not one word of accountability. Not one sentence that said I'm sorry. Just deflection. Blame. Denial. A letter written by two people who still believed I owed them something. I folded it quietly and set it aside. Then I opened the thicker envelope. Inside was a stack of papers clipped together. Legal papers. My breath caught the moment I saw the header across the top sheet. Petition for temporary financial oversight and wellness evaluation. For a full 10 seconds, I could not move. They had filed a petition. Against me. Claiming I was unstable, impulsive, and financially incapable, all because I stopped paying their bills. They wanted legal access to my accounts. They wanted control. They wanted the money back. A slow, cold wave washed down my spine. I flipped through the pages. They had written statements. Signed them. Submitted them. My father claimed I was making emotionally driven choices that endangered their well-being. My mother claimed I was lashing out and financially irresponsible, pointing to my cancelled transfers as evidence. For a moment, the room blurred. I sat down at the kitchen table, the papers trembling in my hands. My daughter kept humming, unaware of the storm that had just spilled into our home. How far were they willing to go? How much were they willing to take? I closed my eyes and took a steady breath. I had spent my entire life thinking if I just tried harder, gave more, proved myself enough, they would treat me the way parents should. But this was the confirmation I never wanted. They were not missing me. They were missing the access to me. I called the only person who would know what to do. My brother answered on the second ring. Pen. Is everything okay? They filed something, I said quietly. Against me. A petition. He went silent. Then his voice sharpened. I'm coming over. He arrived within 20 minutes, out of breath, hair messy like he had run the whole way. When I slid the papers across the table, his face twisted with anger I had never seen from him. They're out of their minds, he whispered. This is insane. It's who they are, I said softly. We just finally see it without the packaging. He pinched the bridge of his nose. Do you want to fight this? Yes, I said. I do. We spent the next hour calling an attorney recommended by Aunt Virginia. A calm, steady woman named Patricia who asked for every detail. When I told her everything, she exhaled sharply. They have no case, she said. This is a control tactic, nothing more. We'll handle it. Something loosened in my chest. When I hung up, my brother placed his hand over mine. You're not alone, he said. Not ever again. My throat tightened. For years, I had carried everything alone. Now the weight finally shifted. Later that afternoon, as sunlight warmed the living room, my daughter walked over with a drawing. Look, Mommy, she said proudly. I drew our family. It was simple. 3 stick figures. Me, her, and her uncle holding her hand. She had drawn a small sun in the corner, lines stretching out like hope. Where's Nana and Grandpa? She asked innocently. I swallowed. Sweetheart, sometimes family is who stays. She studied the picture, then smiled and added more purple stars around our heads. Then this is perfect. I hugged her tightly, breathing in the soft scent of her hair. Later that night, after she fell asleep, I stepped out onto the balcony with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders. The city lights flickered below. The air felt sharp and cold, like truth often does. I thought about the birthday party. The empty chairs. The lie they told. The Facebook live stream. The reunion video. The petition. All of it lined up in my mind like a trail of stones leading me straight to this moment. A moment where I was no longer the girl who gave everything in exchange for nothing. I was someone who finally understood what boundaries really meant. I whispered into the night, I choose peace. And for the first time, peace did not feel like a compromise. It felt like a doorway. I stood there until the air chilled my skin, until the street noise faded into something distant. When I walked back inside, I felt different. Not healed. Not finished. But stronger. My brother texted before I went to bed. I got you. Whatever comes next. I believed him. I put my phone on the nightstand and looked toward the hallway where my daughter slept peacefully under her glow-in-the-dark stars. I survived the worst part already. The part where hope dies. What came next was rebuilding. I closed my eyes, thinking tomorrow would be the first day of real freedom. But I was wrong. Because early the next morning, before the sun rose, before coffee brewed, before my daughter even stirred in her bed, someone knocked on my door. A knock is slow and heavy. A knock from the past I had finally decided to leave behind. And when I opened the door, the last person I expected to see was standing there. With a folder in their hands. And a look that told me everything was about to change again.